On this episode of China Uncensored, the craziest stories from China in 2014. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Nothing welcomes in the new year quite like top 10 lists. So, let's take a look back at the craziest stories that came out of China this year. Number 10. Democracy is a cult. What do democracy, terrorism, and cults have in common? Well, according to Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece Seeking Truth, they're all part of America's insidious plot to undermine China. As China was reeling from a horrific mass stabbing in Kunming and a brutal public murder of a woman by alleged members of a Christian sect called the Church of Almighty God, people were looking for answers. And the state-sanctioned answer is, America did it. Seeking Truth published an article called Why the Democratic Movement is Also a Type of Cult, because nothing says loss of free will like voting for your representatives. The article said, America is behind the evil religion, behind the terrorist organizations, and behind the democracy movement. Under America's unified coaching, the cult members, terrorists, and democracy activists find their common goals and interests, and together serve the U.S. to fight against China. How could the U.S. be so evil? Well, that brings us to Number 9. The U.S. is run by Nazi space aliens. Keep in mind, this is only number 9, and I'm already at Nazi space aliens. At the beginning of the year, China's state-run Global Times published an editorial based on an Iranian news agency article, which was supposedly based on testimony by Edward Snowden that the U.S. government was in fact run by a shadow government of Nazi space aliens. Okay, the aliens weren't actually Nazis. They just worked for the Nazis until they were defeated in World War II, and then they switched sides. Obviously, the aliens wouldn't be Nazis themselves. That's just silly. Number 8. Why can't China make a good sitcom? You know, speaking of aliens, why can't the Chinese government make a soap opera as good as the alien-themed South Korean TV drama, My Love from the Stars? That's the first issue that was discussed at one of the biggest meetings of top Chinese officials in March, the 2 sessions. Sure, just 2 days beforehand, a group of knife-wielding maniacs murdered 33 people and injured 143 more at a Kunming rail station, but the more pressing issue is why the Chinese government couldn't make a TV show as popular as South Korea's My Love from the Stars. It's about an alien who crashes on Earth in ancient Korea, then falls in love with a stuck-up starlet in the modern era. It was so popular that a pregnant Chinese woman almost had a miscarriage from binge-watching. I mean, it should be easy for China's State Administration of Radio, Film, and Television to make a show as popular as that, you know, as long as it avoids a few banned themes like fantasy, time travel, random compilations of mythical stories, bizarre plots, absurd techniques, propagating feudal superstitions, fatalism and reincarnation, ambiguous moral lessons, and a lack of positive thinking. I mean, other than that, it should be easy to make a popular show, right? Number 7. Chen Guangbiao. I had to give China's craziest millionaire his own category. Otherwise, half of the crazy stories from China would have been about him. He started off the year by saying he was going to buy the New York Times. Then in July, he deceived a New York charity and hundreds of homeless people by promising to give the people loads of money, and then not giving them any. But he did get a chance for some shameless self-promotion, which he got to do again the next month when he most likely faked his ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Who knows what 2015 has in store? Number 6. China won the South China Sea. China is embroiled in complicated territorial disputes with many of its neighbors in the East and South China Sea. Now, obviously, this kind of thing requires thoughtful and delicate diplomacy. Instead, China has been building islands on rocks and reefs in disputed territorial waters to bolster their territorial claims. This year, China began building an island on the Fiery Cross Reef, which is obviously within China's territorial waters. If that sounds sarcastic, think about this. If China can claim this island as its sovereign territory, even if it's just an airstrip, A United Nations convention would give China an exclusive economic zone within up to 230 miles, which includes all rights to fishing, mining, and oil. Number 5. China's big military problem. China's military has seen double-digit growth, but that's not the only thing growing. Its soldiers are too. According to research from China's General Armament Department, compared to 20 years ago, the average Chinese soldier is now taller by more than 3/4 of an inch and bigger by almost 2 inches around the waist. Now, they can't fit in their own tanks. Their guns are too small too. You see, a lot of China's military hardware was made for the soldiers of 30 years ago, a time when China was suffering from rationing and poor nutrition, though Mao always seemed to be well fed. Who would have thought that a better fed population would weaken the army? Number 4. China solved the world's energy crisis. Yes, that's right. Worry no more about energy. China has discovered a source of fuel that will provide energy for 10,000 years. The moon. The moon's surface is covered in a rare isotope called helium-3. All China has to do is establish a mining colony on the moon's surface, heat the helium-3 to 600 degrees, and ship it back to Earth to be used as fuel for nuclear fission reactors that haven't been invented yet. I mean, that's basically the plot to one of my favorite movies, Moon, which probably is banned in China due to the state's restriction on, quote, bizarre plots. That and the fact that China only allows 34 foreign films a year. But that's not the only ambitious project China said it wants to embark on this year. So here's number 3. China's underwater train to America. Why sit on a plane for 11 hours when you could travel from Beijing to the US in only 2 days via underwater train built by a country with a glorious history of safe rail travel? State-run People's Daily announced China was considering building a high-speed rail line that would start in northeast China, run through Siberia, cross a 125-mile underwater tunnel under the Bering Strait, then travel through Alaska and Canada before reaching the continental US. I see no problems with this. Why is this even on a list of crazy stories? Number 2, crime and punishment. If I were in China, I'd be in jail right now. No, not for the reasons you think. For that pun I just made. China has banned puns. Now, maybe you might be confused as to why the Chinese regime would ban puns. Well, that's a penetrating question. Obviously because they create, quote, cultural and linguistic chaos and mislead the public, particularly the youth. And now, it's time for number 1, the craziest story to come out of China this year. Hey, security is important, right? Sure is. That's why in 2012, during the 18th National People's Congress, when China had a once-in-a-decade power transition, they had all the taxis in Beijing rip out their window handles and they banned ping pong balls. Why? Do you really need to ask? It's so people wouldn't write subversive messages on ping pong balls and throw them out the window, obviously. But in 2014, safety was even safer. Right before National Day in October, the day that marks the Communist Party's liberation of China, there was, of course, natural concern about terrorism. So Chinese officials carried out a thorough bomb sweep. And when I say thorough, I mean thorough. Apparently, there was some concern that the pigeons released during celebrations in Tiananmen Square could be carrying bombs. They were not. But hey, better safe than sorry. Or would you rather have the smoking gun be an exploding pigeon in the sky? So, that's it for my list of top 10 craziest stories from China this year. Did I miss any? Leave your comments below, subscribe for more, and of course, Happy New Year. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.